welcome you to this special session that we have for you this afternoon, a special panel that has been organized by the Tangaza University and the partners under the umbrella Annual African Conference on Social Entrepreneurship that you have been taking part in since yesterday. This is an exciting panel on technology for humanity. What is the role of technology in catalyzing lasting social impact in African communities? So we're going to take the next 2 hours to engage our distinguished gentlemen who are members of this panel this afternoon to get their views, what is the way forward, and what are we doing that we need to do differently. So we welcome you to this very engaging session. And just as we begin, I would like to let you know who the panel members are, and I will start by introducing myself. My name is Noreen Dega. I'm in charge of programs and operations at the SME Advisory Unit at the Executive Office of the President in Kenya. It's a pleasure to be your moderator this afternoon. Our panelists for the day are, we have Kevin Gikonyo from HIVOS. Kevin has over 14 years experience consolidated in enabling people to be better in their society. He has championed for climate change initiatives, gig economy, and wealth through business entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship advisory that he has provided. He has an edge in programming for vulnerable communities and those in humanitarian settings, where he gets satisfaction in applying his acumen in strategy, innovation, and implementation for programs with a bias towards women and youth. He is also the founder of Spine Global Solutions, social entre business consultants, and is currently the lead consultant in social entrepreneurship within Eastern Africa for the HIVOS Foundation. Kevin is currently pursuing a master's in development finance, accounting CPA, and has acquired knowledge in e-commerce, finance, computer science, and information systems audit. Our other distinguished panelist is Roy Osumba from IGOV. Ronald has 16, there's Ronnie and there's Ronald in this panel this afternoon. Ronald has 16 years of experience in the private sector, public service, and entrepreneurship, having held various leadership positions in technology, ICT, telecommunications, media, and banking and finance, not to forget government corporations. He is the founder and CEO of IGOV Africa Limited, and an entrepreneur invested in ICT infrastructure development, construction, healthcare, fintech, and public policy consultancy. As the head of public sector at Oracle Corporation, Kenya, Senior Manager for Government Relations and Public Sector Sales at Safaricom Limited, and Chairman of Youth Enterprise Development Fund. He has set up high-performance teams that have shaped policy decisions, both at the national and county government levels, while also still wearing the other hat, which is in the private sector approach to social economic solutions. He is a Tutu Fellow, Aspen Institute graduate, and a Crans Montana Leader of Tomorrow, and serves as a trustee of Uzima University. Not to forget, he also acts as the vice chairman of the Uzima University Foundation. Well, folks, I told you today we have quite a rich array of panelists in front of you. Very exciting. We also have Benga Sesan. He is the executive director of Paradigm Shift, a Pan-African social enterprise working on digital inclusion and digital rights through its offices in Cameroon, Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. He is also a non-resident fellow at the Digital Civil Society Lab at the Stanford University. Prior to starting Paradigm Initiative, Benga led the Lagos Digital Village, a joint project of junior achievement for Nigeria, Microsoft, and the Lagos state government. Interesting. And our fourth panelist is Katamba Ronald. Ronald Katamba is an AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning expert. He has done various projects as the director and CEO in the company: text review analysis, diabetes prediction using deep learning, and data analytic techniques. He has used various techniques during the work, such as convolutional neural networks, YOLO algorithms, which is an object detection algorithm, recurrent neural networks, also known as RNN, artificial neural networks, to solve different problems. And he has also used natural language processing, NLP concepts, such as word vectors, glove word embeddings, and word2vec. So, ladies and gentlemen, kindly join me in welcoming the distinguished members of panelists who will be in front of you. As you have heard, we have a rich panel, and we definitely look forward to engaging with each of them this afternoon. Good. So, dear gentlemen, I will go into the first question of this afternoon's session, and I will ask you, what are the deliberate steps that each of your organization has taken towards uplifting humanity through the use of technology? And I'll start with Kevin Gikonyo of HIVOS.
Thank you so much, Ms. Liga. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols are observed. My name is Kevin, Social Entrepreneurship Lead for HIVOS East Africa. HIVOS was started in 1968, and it is globally placed with several other hubs within the world: Southern Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Netherlands. Our headquarters are in Netherlands. So we are basically inspired by the humanistic values. Our mission is to seek new and creative solutions to persistent global problems. We offer positive counterbalance against discrimination, inequality, abuse of power, and unsustainable use of our planet resources. We innovate for social change. So to answer your question, as we speak today about tech for humanity, so what is the role for tech in the catalyzing lasting solution, social impact in African countries? So as HIVOS, we have done quite a lot. I'll say those in brief that actually relate to technology. So one of them, which we are very well known for, is African Biogas Partnership Program. It is a very wide program that actually was cross-cutting around countries. It was Burkina Faso, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and we were able to make so much impact as much as the project came to a close. A brief about the project is that we would use digesters and actually produce sustainable power for households. We would use local refuse from animals and actually make biogas out of it. So basically, we were funded by the Ministry of Netherlands to the tune of 2.5, and our main aim was to train, provide credit solutions, and create a sustainable ecosystem to create a value chain. Through that, we were able to create 60,000 biodigesters in Africa, 90 biodigesters enterprises, social enterprises, and also were able to, using the bioslurry, which is a byproduct of a biodigester, able to make use of improved land, about 300,000 hectares, as a fertilizer, which would come as a byproduct of it. So that came to a close, and it was really enterprising, and we were able to make meaningful change within these societies. That's one of the projects, and we were addressing SDG number 7, which I'm sure will come into the final details within our discussions. Our second project was open up contracting, which is very well popular in Kenya. We were the first organization in Kenya to actually be able to have Makueni County, the first county to be able to have an open contracting system. I'm sure, Ms. Dika, you're aware of that. It has been recognized even in the government circles. And right now we are seeing even the government is trying to do that in all the other counties and even the other institutions, including the recent KEMSA, which the president actually mentioned. So we have actually done that, not just in Kenya, but in Bolivia, Guatemala, Indonesia, Kenya, Malawi, Philippines, and Tanzania. Our budget was 12.5 million euros, and we've created open governments where the citizens could be able to have an equal and inclusive access to public goods and services with meaningful engagements to public resources allocation and policy decision making. Our third project is also very near our home, and that project is in regards to our humanitarian setting in Ethiopia, Ethiopia-Somali region. It was access to modern energy, humanitarian setting. So the technology there was actually making the communities around there to be able to use briquette making machines to avoid the use of the ordinary fossil fuels that usually affect the human beings. That being charcoal, trees, felling of trees, and of course affecting the economic system. So we were able to do that in Ethiopia, in the sections of Dolo Ado.
Hello, Kevin, I think.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're back.
Yes, yes. Sorry about that. So we're able to uplift about 5,000 households within these sections I'm talking about, and we were funded to the tune of 1 million euros by the Ministry of Netherlands Foreign Affairs, which is where we get most of the funding from. One of the other projects which I'm about to close, and it's not just a list, but just one of them within technology, is one which is very close to home in Kenya. It's called Dignity in Labor Project. This project is very pertinent with what we are facing now during the COVID times. So Dignity in Labor Project falls under our Women at Work program, which is also funded by the Ministry of Netherlands, for Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Netherlands, and to the tune of 100,000 euros, which was a pilot project. And our aim is actually to create decent work for domestic workers within Kenya, Nairobi metropolis. As we speak now, the project is at the tail end of actually launch. We are launching it on the 10th of December. Due to COVID-related issues, we have seen our domestic workers who normally sit under the trees and the mamafuas that we all know, waiting for the next position to actually get to work in these households. So we figured out, because of the COVID-related issues, we have to come up with a solution that is going to actually address this issue and the pandemic that actually has created another norm. So for us, we created an app solution which is called Home Care Hub. You can visit that later. Home Care Hub app that has the ability to actually engage the domestic workers for home users who want to have domestic workers to do various chores within their households. So it is up and running. It is in its pilot stage. You can be able to access that. We shall have the launch in 10th December. Already we have engaged 2,000 domestic workers in Kenya, and we believe the project is going to be revolutionary. Just to mention on the tipping, we have another one called Cloud Grid Solution. That is a project that's undergoing in Narok County, where we have the use of solar systems that are able to allow homestays to share the solar systems that have been tapped, the energy that has been tapped with the solar systems above their houses. We know there are various peak hours in various houses, so it creates sort of a mini grid within a home or community setup. So those are some of the projects that we have done, but not the list. And of course, we are here to to innovate for social change. That is HIVOS East Africa, and I'm sure I'll give more details when they come. Thank you, Ndiga. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Seems like you've been up to so much during this period. And especially, I like the Dignity in Labor project. Maybe we can catch up on this offline. So over to you, Ronnie Osumba. We're eager to know, what has IGOV been doing, and what's the role of technology in your programs as you catalyze the lasting social impact for the African communities that you operate in, and even further than that. Karibu. Karibu, Mr. Osumba.
Thanks a lot, Noreen. I hope I hope you can all see my screen.
Yes, I can see it from my side.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you to the organizers for having invited us as part of this, I think, very important conversation. I'm going to take you through basically what our profile is, and then, talk through some of the projects that we are undertaking as IGOV. So basically, IGOV is a boutique innovation house. We want to support the local ecosystem of entrepreneurs to leverage technology to help in addressing public and social challenges, what we're calling leveraging technology for public social good. Our role really is to bring people within the innovation ecosystem and help them in developing, managing, and supporting their works that they do. So we're looking at problem solvers, so whether these are social entrepreneurs, developers, SMEs, startups. We're looking at enablers, people who provide platforms. So whether you're looking at the innovation and entrepreneurship hubs across the region and the continent. We are looking at conveners like government. Noreen, you are one of those people who, for example, within the executive office of the president is driving this conversation. So, you know, in our perspective, you know, you are a convener for the same. And we're looking at promoters, people who basically finance and provide the wherewithal for entrepreneurs to go to market. So this is what we really focus on. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but I will just run a slide later that will make this clearer. So our mission is really to be the leading ecosystem integrator on the continent, to leverage technology for public social good. And our vision is simple. It is to innovate and to inspire. To inspire people towards addressing local challenges. And for that, we have 3 specific approaches that we use. The first one, of course, is human-centered designing. We all know that, you know, for us to be able to take a product or a service that addresses real problems, the user has to be at the center of designing that product. It's not normally typical in your large-scale for-profit ventures, but as social entrepreneurs, this really has to be critical if we are to have an impact on the lives of citizens. So we want to use this approach to improve the lives of citizens in their interactions with government, social enterprises, and development organizations. We are championing an approach called communities of innovation, really modeled around what we know as communities of practice, where we're encouraging government to invite citizens. So this is for you, Noreen, and your colleagues across the continent, to invite citizens, innovators, researchers, and entrepreneurs to jointly facilitate innovation, so that innovation is not happening in isolation of each other, but it is happening in collaboration with each other in these communities that we have created. And of course, the final approach is the lean startup model, which is not typical for your for-profit enterprises. We want to help entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs, for that matter, to focus on a feedback loop of build, measure, and learn. So you don't need to have the best of breed of products to take to market. You need to have your minimum viable product, begin the process of learning as quickly as possible to help you to continuously improve on your offering. So this is what I was talking about in a nutshell. This one slide captures everything that we do. So who are problem solvers? Problem solvers are, you know, the social entrepreneurs we have on this call and many more across the continent who are addressing social challenges. They are the small businesses, small and growing businesses, SMEs. They are the startups. They are the software developers like my namesake Ronald, who are using, you know, all this new big tech to address social challenges. So those are our problem solvers. But we also look at who are the promoters, who are the enablers? How do we enable these problem solvers to build their capacity to address some of the social challenges? And the enablers will therefore be people who have invested significantly in hubs or labs where research, tests are encouraged, platforms, and now we're seeing a lot of platform as a service rolling out to support problem solvers, people who are creating open data. This is a conversation we need to have, again, something that is lagging behind on the continent, but that we need to pick speed on, you know, connectivity and business training. And then you have conveners like yourself, Noreen, government, development partners who bring us together in such fora. So Tangaza, again, would be a good one. Ashoka is a good one as a convener, bringing us together to sit in summits, conferences, fireside chats, and hackathons, just to be able to storm through some of the challenges we face. And promoters are people who then provide the equity, the wherewithal. So venture capitalists, private equity, public funds, impact funds, and other donors. So what has IDEF done? We have worked with a couple of partners to be able to address some of the social challenges. You know, Our biggest program today is the Kenya Catalytics Job Fund, which is a UK aid funded program. It's £5 million, ideally focused on identifying small businesses that are innovative, addressing social challenges, onboarding young people, women, and marginalized communities so that we're not leaving them behind, but at the same time creating jobs. So jobs, as you see in our name, is the primary focus. How do we catalyze jobs through social entrepreneurship? We're working with the economic bloc from the south of Kenya, what is called Jumuiya ya County the Pwani. This is an EU-funded program that is focusing on the blue economy and trying to build social enterprises that are utilizing or leveraging on this natural resource of the blue economy, the sea, to build shared prosperity, but also create jobs and a valuable impact to the community. We have built two platforms. One is M-Safari, which is a contact tracing tool primarily, but also supposed to help with urban planning and urban mobility and how we shape and formalize jobs within what we call the matatu sector. K-Mazao is a logistics platform. We're working with Postal Corporation of Kenya and other technology partners to be able to reach out to smallholder farmers in addressing the issue of food security. We're working with the Public Service Commission to develop a digital marketplace where public service will, embark on this journey of digitalization of services to communities. So in a nutshell, this is, what we do. We've brought in a very expansive team, strong team, experienced from the areas of entrepreneurship, innovation policy, research and learning, so that we can be able to provide top of the class support for entrepreneurs. I'm sure we will be able to dive in a little bit more around that. Thank you, Noreen.
Thank you very much, Roy. It's interesting to hear the different projects that you've been carrying out, and especially at this time when the SME ecosystem is very vibrant. A lot has been happening. As you well know, we have the startup policy in Kenya that goes towards shaping how does that ecosystem look like and what kind of support do government agencies and private sector inject in order to uplift SMEs. And SMEs themselves, through their networks or associations, are starting to come around to ask the question, is it the right time now whereby we should have our own association, an association that speaks for us, that is by us and for us. And also we have the Kenya National Innovation Kenya Agency, which now would go towards supporting innovation and working together, of course, with the different academic institutions who are already in that space. So thank you, Ronnie, for taking us through what it is that you are doing. Asante sana, and we look forward to hearing more on that. So over to Benga Sasan. Karibu sana.
Asante sana. So in my third year in secondary school, which was 1991, that probably tells a lot already. That's many years ago. That's at least 29 years ago. I learned, everybody in the school found out that 2 computers were donated to our school. It was very easy to find out when computers are brought into your school in those days. This was 1991, don't forget. So they were in a truck. They weren't so big. It was just the desktop computers, the monitor, the CPU, which almost looked like a video player, and then the keyboard. But they were put in a truck, in a mini truck, and the head of the school, the principal, walked with this truck from the gate, about a distance of about 300 meters from the gate to his office. He walked with the truck as if he was protecting it. And then when they got to his office, they offloaded these white looking things. Everybody was excited. We knew something was going on, but we didn't know what it was. So later in my class, one of my friends in class, Wale, came back to class and said, "Oh, they are computers. I can play games on them." And weeks later, he would go there and come back and say, "I've played games." Don't forget, when you're 13, you're highly opinionated and you're assuming you can do everything in the world. So I also went to the computer lab, but the teacher who was at the entrance literally looked down at me. I mean, I was small, he was tall, and he said, computers are not for people like you. You can't understand how to use them. I was sad and I cried, but of course I was in GS3. The girls never saw me crying. I cleaned my eyes before I got back to class, and somewhere between the computer room and the class, I made up my mind. I was going to learn how to use whatever it was, computers, and also teach other people so they don't get embarrassed the way I was embarrassed. And guess what? That teacher, 10 years later, when I became Nigeria's IT Youth Ambassador, they invited me back to school. I spoke, and then the students were all excited. And the teacher took the mic and said, "Oh, I remember someone who was in this school. We always knew, he had it in him then." And he was right. I did have it in me. But what happened at that time was that he helped to lay a foundation for what many years later, 13 years ago, in 2007, after working for 6 years, I decided I was going to go back to fulfill the promise I made in 1991. I mean, it took a while. It took about 14 years to fulfill that promise, but I'd studied engineering, electrical engineering. I'd become a youth ambassador for Nigeria. I'd seen the need again, but I thought it was important to fulfill that promise. Oh, by the way, I'd saved I think it was about $4,000 from consulting work and everything, and I thought it was a lot of money. I could start my own nonprofit in 2007. I was quick to find out later that $4,000 in any currency is not a lot of money, especially if you have to rent a venue and train. So in 2007, I started Paradigm Initiative, and we do two things. First is that we make sure that no young person in any underserved area, beginning with Nigeria, now we're in 6 countries across the continent, no young person goes through what I went through. No young person gets denied access to computers, and none of them get told that they're not good enough to use computers. That's what we do through our LIFE program, which now runs across 15 schools and 3 centers in Nigeria, and begins, in Senegal next year in February. And the good thing is that while we started, doing that work in training, we started training young people. One of the first young people we trained was Famous, and I always love to tell the story because right now, I had a conversation with Famous quite recently because he won an award, now works with KPMG Professional Services, won an innovation award as an assistant manager. And, this was a young man who 13 years ago, had been told by his parents, this is our economic condition, we can't do anything else. Your younger ones also have to go to school. He went through our training program. It's a 10-week intensive technology and entrepreneurship training program. He went through that program. When he was done, he got an internship. While he was at the internship, he found out about a job opportunity. And when he heard about the job and wanted to apply, I told him, maybe you shouldn't apply because you don't have a degree just yet. If you know what the youth unemployment number is across the continent, you will know why someone without a degree may be advised not to apply for a job. But he did get a job. He spent 8 months, between 6 and 8 months on the job. It was a good job. It was he was working with the UK High Commission in Abuja because he knew how to use Excel very well, and they were looking for someone who was good at databases and some decent salary. Then saved enough money, resigned, went to school, studied medical biochemistry, graduated, and now works. And the story of Famous, the story of Esther, the story of all of their stories, that's why we do what we do in terms of training young people at Paradigm Initiative, because we believe that opportunity may not be evenly distributed, but talent is. And when you connect young people with talents, they will find, or opportunities will find them. And the second part of our work, which we started, working on almost immediately in 2008, is policy. Because we realized that no matter how much we train young people, it's important for them to work in an environment that is conducive, for them. One of the incidents that we are very worried about across the continent is the rate at which governments, who in the first place are talking about let's get online, let's get more people online, let's use the internet to get things done, are also still restricting the internet. As I speak to you right now, Paradigm Initiative is on top of a situation in Nigeria where some websites have been blocked because they're affiliated to a set of young people who were protesting. So it is our work, for example, to make sure that we train people on how to stay online in case there are shutdowns or various things done with the internet. So Paradigm Initiative works in digital rights to make sure that we enjoy the best of the internet and don't have to look over our shoulders, and in digital inclusion so that every young man like Famous or every young woman like Esther can get connected to training that will improve their lives and that of their families.
Thank you very much, Benga, and thank you for sharing your inspirational story on what led you to be where you are doing what you're doing currently. What you're doing is awesome work with the young ones and the youth, very commendable. So Asante, and we look forward to learning more about Paradigm's initiatives as we proceed into the afternoon, Asante. So over to you now, Ronald. Ronald, you're on mute. Kindly unmute. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's always good to be the last person because you always hear some inspiration things, and I'm really so attached about what I'm hearing here, and I'm glad to be here. My name is Ronald Katamba. I'm the CEO of AACOSE IT Solution and Jaguza Tech. And briefly, my background is I'm into software. And I started this company when I just finished my university. So when they retained me at campus, I realized that there's a problem of hands-on at the university since I was teaching programming as a course unit. And I said, no, I need to make sure I start a company and I help the students to make sure from getting a degree, you come and I train you well, and make sure you come up as an IT profession. So that was the birth of AACOSE. And through AACOSE, we said we need to start innovation as something we can do. And we have been doing a lot of innovation. And one of the most famous innovation is called Jaguza Tech. And this is the technology that is now in 4 countries. And we so far have 18,000 farmers online who are accessing this technology. We use sensor technology, artificial intelligence, and IoT. When you talk of Internet of Things, you talk of a computer, you talk of a mobile phone, and you talk of a hardware. So we combine all those to make sure we help farmers in agriculture ecosystem. How can we help farmers who are having problem of diseases in livestock, cattle theft, information sharing, and so many information, including extension services. So the work of Jaguza is to make sure we use sensor technology to detect diseases in livestock. And we do this by using our patented devices. This is one of our devices we created, and it's already patented. And we use it to make sure we diagnose most of the diseases. And we are glad that we're coming to Kenya. We've been in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we are coming with another technology. And I'm glad to see some of my social entrepreneurs around here. So we have a project, another project called PlantScope. PlantScope is a technology we use deep learning and computer vision and machine learning to make sure we diagnose crops. So we use this drone. This is a drone we use to make sure it goes up, it detects a crop, for example, maize or rice or banana. It sends the information to our cloud server, and then it comes to the mobile phone, and you'll be able to diagnose the exact crop, the disease that is affecting your crop. So we are so far partnering with we are going to do a POC, a pilot study in Nigeria, under AgriDrive, which we are working with. I think AgriDrive in Nigeria, and we are so happy to work with AATF in Kenya. It's in Kenya, and we hope to come with such kind of technology, because where we are going, as we are discussing about technology and humanity, how can we help people, farmers out there in local areas, to make sure we can help them to support so that they can use technology in whatever they want. We have, I didn't tell you about the AfroSoft, what we are doing. We've been at Kabalaka University as AfroSoft when we are training IoT. I'm an IoT evangelist in East Africa, and we go to universities, to secondary schools, to make sure we show them how we can use Internet of Things to make sure we help young people to be not, we don't want this to hear them in America, in other countries, but even in Africa here, we believe we can do this. And that's our major thing, is to make sure we uplift. I've been in Kabalaka University. I've trained most of the students from there. I've been in Tanzania, Mandela Science and Technology in Tanzania. We are trying to make sure we create the ecosystem where we can train these young people to make sure they can learn technology. And we have a lot of devices. To you, my fellow entrepreneur, if there's an opportunity, we're ready to come and make sure we give, we evangelize Internet of Things, IoT and technology to some of your communities. My last project is about diagnosing tuberculosis. TB is one of the, in health, TB is one of the danger disease we have, not only in Uganda or East Africa or Africa, but all over the world. But how can we make sure we help the humanity to make sure they could diagnose this in real time? So through my technology, which I use, I've been at Stanford University in California, and we're doing some prototypes on how best we can use technology to make sure we diagnose tuberculosis by the use of a breath. You just breathe in my hardware, and then it analyzes, and it shows you the results on your mobile phone, and it tells you the possible way how you can be able to help overcome such kind of challenges. And besides that, we can also give you the reference of the experts within that disease, where they are, and they can also give you the post signs and symptoms and prevention of how you can be able to forego such kind of things. So it's really, I'm happy to make sure. First of all, yes, I want to thank Ashoka Chenmeka, because I know these are the guys who made my journey success. And I have to thank Vincent for that opportunity. In fact, I need to be happy about Ashoka, because I presented it in 2015, 2016, and I managed to be one of the best 10 young entrepreneurs in East Africa. And then we had to go to Kenya, and we are taught a lot of things. You know, being an innovator, an entrepreneur, you can be everything, but if you don't know the business side, you can fail to scale your innovation or your product. And that's how Jaguza was. We couldn't move from one country to another, because what we have is, we have the technology, we have everything, and we can do whatever we want. But this comes and it ends from our side. It does not go to other people. So I want to thank that, and through that we managed to get a global award in Africa, and also 4 global awards in all over the world. I've been in, I've got a global award in Fiji. I've got another global award in US. I've got another one in Budapest in Hungary, and also in Africa here. Last year we managed to be the best. We are the ambassador of Africa Young innovator in Africa under CTA, and we managed to come up with a global one. So I'm so much interested in hearing and also participating with this, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ronald. And I like that towards the end of your address, you've made sure you've mentioned your awards. It's very good to cheer yourself on. It's very important because you're your biggest cheerleader. So before others cheer you on, you should be very willing and ready to cheer yourself. So asante sana. Also, I like the fact that you have mentioned how entrepreneurship is a scary and lonely journey. Most of the entrepreneurs, when they get into it, they don't realize that there'll be so much waiting for them. So with good partners and with good mentors and with good support system, you're absolutely right. That is what enables the business to move from one tier to the other or one level to the other. So it is good that you've acknowledged Ashoka, who are also the partners for today's conference. So thank you, Ashoka, for standing through by entrepreneurs as they go through their entrepreneurship journeys. So as we close on this beginning session of this panel, it would be good to acknowledge that the different panelists brought out what it is, the activities that are being carried within their institutions. And it was very interesting to note that they cut across all sectors as they try to inject technology and make sure that it's in the forefront of what they're doing. We've noted that, we're in the energy sector through this panel, we're in the finance sector, health and agriculture, and corporate governance, digital rights. So we notice that there's a good mix that's taking place within your organizations, and what you're doing is quite commendable as you work with technology towards uplifting humanity. So thank you very much. And if you'll kindly allow me, I will move to the next set of questions. And I'll start by asking our dear panelists, what opportunities are currently existing with regards to technology in realizing a new paradigm beyond the pandemic? And if you may allow, I'll just give a quick background or brief rather to what is currently happening. As you know, from January this year or towards end of late last year, the whole continent, we're all thrown into array with this new life that we have to exist with, thanks to Corona and COVID, and that brought about strict social distancing laws, which were imposed upon us to prevent us from spreading the disease further. And this forced many of your employees and employees of different other organizations to resort to remote working. This was a notion that they were not conversant with before, so it was something new. Exposing the levels of unpreparedness of many African enterprises, because we've seen enterprises shutting down, we've seen some having to scale down, we've seen banks having to come to meet the enterprises halfway by either restructuring the loans. So we've seen a lot coming about because of this new normal that we're living with. So as we delve into the significance of innovation for social entrepreneurs, we would like to bring out the importance of ensuring that there's continuity of all African businesses in the long term. Some have managed actually to survive through the period. You'd be surprised that some enterprises have, been confident enough to say this is when they've done booming business. So it's not all gray when you look at the other side of the coin. But what are the opportunities from your standpoint that exist? That's the question, that exist in technology to help us realize this new economy paradigm that we're now living in, that would now take us into the next frontier or the next years that now we are getting into. So asante sana, and I'll start with Kevin. I think he's had some rest. So Kevin, over to you. I'd like you to give you 3 minutes to just quickly share what are your thoughts on that. Kevin, you're on mute.
Yes, I noted. Thank you, Ms. Nika. Of course, we're living in these COVID times. There are various opportunities and I just mentioned two. One of them, which I found very interesting, was a solar-powered ventilators innovation that was done by a JQuat student by the name of Karanja Kabini. For me, I'm usually very passionate when such things usually come about, because of course now we have issues about having ventilators, people to actually, they need an assistance to actually have oxygen within their system. And of course, if you are within a locality where you are within the power grid, then of course you have the ability to use the electricity. But imagine this young fellow, Karanja Kabini, who innovated something that would use solar and would be able to allow solar-powered ventilators from a very remote locality. So for me, I think that's brilliant. That would actually suffice and do well within this COVID period, and of course save many lives. So, and then of course I will be very biased to one of my projects, my baby projects, the one for the domestic workers that are not now in a position to move around, or even some of them have lost their jobs because the employers are a bit scared about the COVID-19 exposure. So there's that element of just safeguarding themselves in terms of health-wise. But then if you have a forum and a platform where the ones who are eligible or are available for you to be able to hire, they have gone through the normal COVID-19 testing, they have gone through the COVID-19 awareness training, and they know how to use the various protection mechanisms, so that by the time you are going to that platform and being able to ask for a domestic worker, you're very sure that they have actually gone through the various protocols that are usually given by the Ministry of Health. So for me, I think I'd say those are the opportunities that actually would be able to offer job matching and placement, and also that are around the healthcare system that would actually be able to help within these COVID times. Over to you, Ms. Nika.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. And Benga would like to also hear what's happening on your end.
So 2020 has been an interesting year for everyone. It's forced us to to think about what we normally used to call impossible. Don't forget, many years ago, in fact, last year, if you had told some of the men on this call that they would have to manage kids, grab a meal, and do everything at the same time, we could have argued with you that don't worry, we've got people who do that for us. We've hired maids and things like that. Then coronavirus hit, and the maids had to stay in their own houses, and you have to stay in your own house. And so we began to do the things we were supposed to do in the first place. And it's the same thing with learning. So I think the three areas where there have been major opportunities, even in this crisis, are number one, in learning. I mean, look at it. We can never build enough schools in Africa. In every African country, more people write exit exams from secondary schools than the number of spaces that universities can take. Let me quote the number for Nigeria, which is supposed to have the largest number of schools. Nigeria has 1.8 million students writing exit exams from secondary school or from high school. We have less than 1 million spaces for them to go into. So it means that even if everyone passes the exams, we don't have space for 800,000. Where will they go to? They can't go to brick and mortar schools. They have to augment learning with online experience. And this is why in the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot of disruption in education and learning, not just on the continent, but across the world. It has started already. Even before coronavirus hit and there were lockdowns and schools had to shut down and things like that, we already saw many startups beginning to work on EdTech, the use of technology in education. We will see that make a lot more progress because, governments used to say before that, we don't have enough resources to make this happen, which is true in many cases, and some schools will say, we can't give all these devices because we don't know if the parents will take them from the kids. But guess what? During the lockdowns, when students had to learn, we had to use radio, we had to use the internet, and we had to use them because it was a matter of life and death. Today's children who do not get opportunities to learn online, number one, will be left behind. Number two, their future is predictable. They would never catch up with their colleagues except there's a major intervention. So in education, we will see opportunities. We will have cheaper devices thankfully. We'll have more people online, thankfully. So my engineering background is showing up here in terms of Moore's law and the fact that every 18 months, the power of microprocessors double, but it's even way more than that right now. We're talking about an era of artificial intelligence, where more people will design. And I can tell you for a fact that very soon, if many countries are not experiencing that already, homework, classwork, and all of the learning components will be broken down into 160 characters in text messages so that people can learn, even if they don't have smartphones. And that will be a major, major intervention for technology in the kind of places where we work, which is the bottom of a pyramid, because forget it, they can't have they don't have smartphones. Instead of buying a smartphone, the alternative opportunity is for you to buy a smaller phone and have money to buy food. And I think the latter is what people will do. The second opportunity we have, is generally, so we're talking about education, but the other is in work. We used to say that, remote work was difficult, that you don't understand our sector. We are non-profits, we're social enterprises. We have to be there. Have you been there since March? No. Has the work been going on? Yes. We've started working remotely since the end of March, and we'll do that until January. Obviously, some things suffer, right? You can't have face-to-face contact in some cases, especially with people who don't have internet access, who are majority of the people that we serve. But that has forced us to begin to think of low tech and not sexy tech. Sexy tech is, these gizmos. We have to use Instagram or ERP platforms, enterprise resource platforms or all that. They sound very sexy. They sound cool. You may get one partner who is willing to pay for it, but the people really just need a solution. I'm sure many of us have read the story of the consultant who received a brief to create a swing for a primary school. And they came with wonderful designs, like, the angles were very perfect at 90 degrees, and the seats were padded and everything. After spending 9 months, they didn't do the job. Then they went back and they just, tied 2 ropes to a tree and put one tire on it. And then the children got on it and started swinging. Problem solved. We need appropriate technology. And that's one of the things that I say is a major opportunity now. We'll begin to see a lot more application of appropriate technology. The fact that you reach your audience with text messages does not mean you're not using technology. WhatsApp is not a junior to Twitter on social media. The question is, what do you need to do? What tech is appropriate for it? And we'll see a lot more alignment and not necessarily excessive spending because tech is sexy. The third, I think, so in terms of work, there'll be many more opportunities for people to work remotely and all of that. In education, we'll have a lot more intervention using tech, as low tech as possible. And of course, a lot more innovation in terms of, people just getting more comfortable. By nature, human beings love remote control lifestyle. You don't want to move just to go and pick a book from this, from that study right in front of me. You at times you even send your children, if they are between 5 and 7, you say, hey, please bring that book for me. But so that's why naturally when someone offers you a mobile phone that has all of the books you want to read and things like that, it's we're going to have a lot of quick uptake on that. So I think we're in for interesting times. Things may pick up a bit slower in some of our countries, depending on the level of access. Only 39% of Africa now has internet access, but we expect that number to grow to at least 70% over the next 12 years for many reasons. Cheaper devices, faster internet, and of course, many governments are in trouble and will be saved by technology. You can't create enough jobs, forget it. Politicians have already promised we're going to create 3 million jobs in 3 years. You're going to disappoint your people, except you use technology. So we're in for a good time, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Benga, and thank you for also reminding us about the human element to what to expect with these new changes that are coming about. It's good that you've gone a step further and thought through how the education sector would be adversely affected and that they need to start planning now in order to at least make sure that most of the children who are not able to access these facilities in order to continue their online studies are well incorporated. So as you've rightfully said, whether it's creation of jobs or whether it's just ensuring that the education sector is streamlined, the government needs to play a very active role together with the partners. Asante sana. So over to you, Ronnie Osumba. Would like to hear what your thoughts are on this.
Thanks a lot. And I think this is an important, conversation to have, particularly with entrepreneurs, because as we all know, obviously the pandemic has disrupted a lot of things. It's no longer just a health crisis, it's also an economic crisis. And therefore our thinking needs to go beyond innovating around the health space. And I'm glad that, Benga has brought up the issue of education and how we ensure we already as a continent had a challenge with taking kids to school. So access was already a problem. Digital learning is not widespread and will never be as widespread as we want it to be on the continent, particularly if, like what Benga said, when we are focusing on all this big tech and leveraging just on, low tech. I used to have a boss who used to say, we don't need smartphones for the general population. We need smart enough phones to be able to allow them to access some of these digital things. But, even pre-COVID, we were all talking about what the future looks like and how do we leverage digital and how do we disrupt what was then the normal. Now, COVID has come and disrupted the normal way before we used technology to disrupt the normal. And therefore, I think the conversation is now shifting to how do we disrupt the disruption? So I think as entrepreneurs, we need to then take a step back and say, where are the new social sufferings? Where are people hurting in this post-COVID world? And obviously, health is the immediate space we are all looking at least until we have a vaccine in wide population. And I'm happy that, there are already candidates making progress. But until we have widespread vaccinations, health will continue to remain an area of opportunity, I think, for social entrepreneurs to think about how do we leverage technology to close the gap, make it accessible, make testing and all these other things affordable for the common person. But I think there's also massive opportunities just on the economic front. How do we revive and sustain and drive growth in industries specifically that have been most hurt, whether that is hospitality industry and travel, education, private schools have been closing en masse. So this is the new reality. And I think as entrepreneurs, we need to move beyond our comfort zones. Some of us had already developed 5-year plans. It's time to shelve those plans and develop new ones in a post-COVID world and think about what are the new spaces that we can play in. As IGAV, earlier this year, when the pandemic hit, one of the things we quickly pivoted was to use low tech, an USSD-based platform to develop a contact tracing solution for public service vehicles. Of course, recognizing that, the virus does not move, people move. And so how do we ensure that we can be able to track the virus by tracking people? So we developed what we call M-Safari, and M-Safari is a digital contact tracing solution for public service vehicles. With the engagement of the market and with the engagement of stakeholders, the stakeholders themselves have come back and said, look, at some point the pandemic will be behind us. How does this solution help the future of our sector? And so, one of the things we quickly put together then was M-Safari is now also a digital payments platform that allows for, commuters to pay using digital payments. Here, of course, we are big on M-Pesa, but it can also use card. But also just to think like a policymaker and say, what is the future of mobility on the continent? We all know mobility is a bit of a mess. It's largely informal, highly chaotic. And if we start then collecting data around the movement of people and goods, we probably can then be able to start planning better. And people like my namesake Ronald will then be able to use this data with their big data platforms and their ALIs and IoTs, be able to build solutions that allow us to move more efficiently, much cheaper, and much quicker. But there are also other spaces. I mean, if you think about it, the reality is on the continent, agriculture is still our mainstay. And agriculture is always the default for every professional. So when we all lose our jobs, irrespective of where you are, Ghana, Libya, Kenya, South Africa, when you lose your job in the city, we all go back to the village to agriculture. Unfortunately, because many of us are not trained or skilled or do not know, a lot of these practices that makes you maximize on your investments, we get left behind, and eventually we probably even become failed farmers. So I think agri-tech will begin to become an extremely critical space. One of the cohorts in our Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund we're working with is called FarmWorks. And FarmWorks is really an umbrella for farmers. FarmWorks focuses on incubating new farmers, people who have not had the skill, are progressed in their lives, so cannot go back to school, but need to be capacity built, incubated, learn the skills, and be deployed to their farms. So, and they're using high tech for this, for precision farming, all those kind of things, learning platforms, self-learning platforms, and stuff like that. So I think you'll see some significant movement around agri-tech as well. And for me, the opportunities are massive. For social entrepreneurs, what is most critical, I think, is to begin to think about where are the new social suffering points, and how do we disrupt the disruption?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ronnie. And I like the question that you posed at the beginning. How do we disrupt the disruptions? So it has clearly come out that now we need to put on our thinking caps and move a step forward in whether it's the digital payments or whichever sector it is that we're working on. Let's look forward and plan. We have the time now and plan. But some have already started strategizing and planning for the future, so which is a good thing for those organizations. So we move on to Ronald. Ronald? Ronald, we need to hear your voice. Kindly unmute.
I was saying that technology has changed our life and increasing the speed of time. We human who invented technology, we have to make sure our life are simple. Of course, we need to know that there is disadvantage and also there's advantage under technology. But it depends to a person on how they plan to utilize the technology products, the service, the application in the best way possible. I'll try to talk basically in one space, like in agriculture. Agriculture today uses sophisticated technology such as robots, temperatures, moisture sensors, drone technology, GPS technology. These advanced technology of precious agriculture are basically allow business to make sure they be more profitable to people. And sorry, hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, I'll give an example of Jaguza, how we have managed to help people. We have so far in this pandemic made more we have so far made almost 50,000 US dollars within this pandemic. And the reason is we have been helping a lot of farmers in rural communities in terms of what they want to sell, what they want to buy. We have, on our platform, we have almost 85 veterinary doctors online. And these doctors, they are on 24 hours helping these farmers to make sure they could help them in farming practices, in diseases, by doing integrating a video call center where you can be in Kenya, you talk to Jaguza in Uganda, and I can be talk to you like the way I'm talking to you right now. And these are some of the services humans may need to have. When you look at rural communities, farmers who can't access smartphones, which best way can we help them to make sure they can also enjoy the technology the way they want? I think our technology can also accessible in Kenya when you dial *284 *35 hash. That USSD platform can be able to make sure they can be able to access the market. They can use veterinary services. They can also be able to register and they can sell and buy. Whether they have smartphone or not, they can be able to sell for them their products. And this, what am I saying? That through technology, there's a lot of advantage, more or less than disadvantage that has been made to help. Sorry about that. I wanted to emphasize that through technology, we have really helped a lot of farmers to make sure they could have what they want. And to me, I could say that technology can help people, and it will help people, and it will also be able to make sure we continue helping people through technology. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ronald Katamba, for bringing in that dimension or aspect of technology. How does it go towards helping people? I would like to ask each of the panelists to kindly let us know what are the challenges that you faced during this period within your organizations as you work through economic recovery plans and as you set your eyes towards growth. What are the challenges that you've experienced, and are there any lessons learned that you would like to share with us today? So I'll start again with you, Kevin Ikonyo from HIVOS.
Thank you, Ms. Ndega. Yet another opportunity. So some of the challenges I'll speak in regards to our project that we had, especially because we started during the COVID time for the one for domestic workers, the home care hub. We were supposed to do a lot of recruitment exercise and also get a lot of domestic workers in regards to training them and how to be more aware of probably how to protect themselves during this COVID period. So of course, bringing them together is quite a huge cost, observing the social distancing and also physical movement. For some of them, it's quite an issue. You have to facilitate them with having masks. And even when they come, there has to be that particular rigorous exercise that you do to actually make sure everyone is safe. So it has increased the costs of actually handling some of these projects and to about a third of what we had envisioned. And of course, that in itself hinders us to be able to rather have that level of efficacy that we had actually hoped we'd have. So for me, I think the costs have gone high. The face-to-face interaction has been reduced. And also the issue of probably mobility at some point when we had the geographical restriction was quite an issue. So right now probably it's a bit relaxed, but then that was quite an issue when we were trying to do some of this groundwork that we had. So I think for me those are the challenges. And probably one more, I would probably increase, or rather just point out that probably we need more more in regards to policy, especially from the government. It's good that you are here, that actually are able to pick on some of these innovations from social entrepreneurs and be able to give them that platform, as much as we have people who are innovating, are creating brilliant ideas to actually move societies forward. How are we doing as a government to have policies that will actually be able to nurture this space and be able to accentuate it and have it propel further? I mean, I'll just give an example. Sorry today, Ms. Tiga, you're on my receiving end, but I hope you'll talk to your boss. It's good that President Uhuru Kenyatta mentioned about the smart hand glove, which I think is a very brilliant innovation. So for those who do not know, is a smart hand glove is able to decode the sign languages for those who are deaf, to those who actually do not know the use of those sign languages. So my question was, as we speak about this innovation, does the government think about doing mass production, so that even Kenya itself, as much we have these innovators, do we nurture these guys and enable them to have mass production for selling even beyond Kenya? Why probably they should not be in a position where they feel they need to rely from some of the international or the Western donors to be able to nurture some of this innovation. So I think we need the whole ecosystem to be able to thrive as social entrepreneurs. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you for highlighting what you've noticed happening within the ecosystem. As I mentioned, in the country currently, we are looking at entrepreneurship and innovation because these are key aspects as you support business people. We have the Kenya National Innovation Agency, which is still young, under Dr. Tony, the lead right now, which is still young, but we're looking at ways of strengthening the agency so that it may be able to work with the tertiary institutions and universities, especially, to just see how it is that they can work towards supporting these important programs that you have mentioned. As you've rightfully mentioned, before we were entrusting, if you come up with an innovation, we were entrusting it on foreign partners to help us to develop it or to fund it. And most of the times what we noticed was that there would be copyright infringement, or even just having the idea, just losing the idea completely and absolutely. Some of them even mentioned to us during meetings that they would watch how their projects are actually being launched in Europe and Paris. Like, there's this person who had done this reflector jacket that the motorcyclists would wear, and anytime, like, so a car would come close to you, to start flashing the lights, or vehicle if you're riding at night. And they actually pitched the idea to a foreign investor, and 6 months down the road, in Europe, they see it being launched, and with so much funding and so much fanfare, and everyone is excited about this brilliant idea, and it just broke their hearts. So these are the stories that are happening across the continent with our young innovators. So within our country, we're looking at how do we protect them? How do we work with them? How do we strengthen them? And then also, how do we grow them? Because most of them are also naive when it comes to their rights or how to run their business or take their idea to the next level. So we're hoping that the Kenya National Innovation Agency would be able to cover all this. And of course, it would have support from the other different government agencies and partners such as yourself, HIVOS. So don't throw the question at me, because we are supposed to hold the question together and find the solutions together. So maybe we could discuss more offline on the same. Asante, Kevin.
You're a phone call away from your boss. Some of us don't have the line, so.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin. All right. Over to you, Rod Yosumba. We look forward to hearing what are the challenges that you've experienced and what are the lessons learned. This is quite an interesting panel this afternoon, I must say.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Noreen. I mean, this has been a difficult year for everybody. And I think the opportunities for learning and growing is there for all of us. Like every entrepreneur, I think on this call and across the continent, one of the immediate challenges we all had is, small businesses and, growing enterprises do not have the luxury of delayed projects. And, you delay the project, the impact on the business is significant, whether it is cash flows or staying on the momentum of your growth. You really do not have the luxury of taking delayed projects. So this has been the most painful from a business perspective, has been the most painful part for us as IGAV, but we have seen it as well for our cohorts because we primarily support startups and work with startups. And the pain and anguish that a lot of these startups have gone through just to remain alive, and considering the fact that there was no, many startups thought there was going to be some sort of a bailout from government, whether that means, deferring tax requirements, or providing soft loans, or providing some breaks in other ways. I think it has been very difficult for SMEs and for startups, and that pain may not yet even be evidenced now. It may come further down the road, when we start seeing some of these businesses closing up, sending people off grid. So that disruption, I think, has been bad for business from an income perspective, but also just from a momentum of sustaining strategy and growth. Productivity has been down, obviously. Personnel productivity. So, when people are working from home, I think people are happier though. This is the upside of it. I think my team, when I look at my team, I think they're happier. People are now working from home with their families, and Benga mentioned it earlier. Some of them are learning to be fathers once again. The ladies are happy that they can now share their roles with their husbands and partners. And so I think there's an upside to it. Many of us have had to, look inward and reflect and have rediscovered ourselves. I think that the pandemic has thrown that to us, but also, and this is the big lesson for me, that there's always this thing we say, there's a silver lining. There's always a silver lining in every challenge. For us, it has been the discovery of M-Safari. We had projected that this year we were going to focus on developing our product. We didn't realize it was going to be a COVID product. In fact, the product we wanted to work on this year, we have put on ice. And we are now focusing on working on this product or this new idea, innovation that we've discovered during COVID. So yes, there are the painful bits of COVID, and business has been disrupted, but I think the upside is, people are working much happier, people are working more productively, but also I think the opportunities to discover new avenues for revenue are there. So, just encouraging people to keep their head up and to disrupt the disruption.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. Over to you, Ronald, Mr. Ronald Katamba. What are your thoughts on the challenges?
Thank you so much. I think my charities, it's about government policies. We have been having a lot of problems with policies. I give you an example of right now, my technology working here in Uganda, even one office to another, making sure that our technology for drone can be able to be working. So up to now, we have still trying to make sure I could meet the president, because the president himself is a farmer, and he has in our country is a farmer. He's worth 38,000 heads of cattle, and he's my client. So I've one time met him, and we discussed some of the way how we can help him to help him within his farm. And he's positive, and I've met him. So I want to introduce him about the drone, because they don't allow drone in our country. So I try to give him how this drone is going to help farmers, most especially the large scale farmers, how it can help them. So we need also to come on board to make sure the government can reduce on policies. These policies, you cannot have a drone, you cannot have this. When you go to other countries, you may find it's very easy for them to make sure they can use such technology, to make sure they can develop various technology and such kind of thing. Maybe another problem is about language barrier. You may find when I was in Mozambique, they are using Portuguese, and my app is in English, and you go to the government of Portuguese, and they like the idea, but they don't know English. So what do we have? Yeah, we had to make sure we convert the mobile app to the language, to Portuguese, such that people can understand the language where people can use. So such kind of challenges also they come, but you have to find a solution how you can overcome that. As an innovator, you don't have to sit down and wait for the government to help you. You have to look for the government. So maybe I'll talk a little bit of no, I think I was going to talk about partnership, but I think I can give it the next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ronald. And just allow me to just move on to the next set of questions in the essence of time, to make sure that we've covered everything that we wanted to discuss this afternoon. So to the panelists, I would like to ask, are there any scenarios or best practices that would be most ideal to benchmark on within the continent or beyond? Are there any good practices that you've seen out there that you feel would be ideal to take up? Or rather, because Africa is the land of fertile minds, have you seen it within the continent, something that other countries can replicate during this period with regards to technology? So I'll start with Mr. Kikonyo. Over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Ntega, once again. I just think probably the issue of education, as some of the panelists have said, we need to really revolutionize some of this, how we are able to tap on online learning. And of course, we've seen it firsthand. We thought it was something very utopia-like, but then it came close home, and we are doing it, some forced and some we were even not aware of how to do it. So I think that would be quite a big game changer. And of course, with this time also, we may have issues to do with agriculture that are going to affect most farmers, their movement. It has to be a bit controlled. So I saw quite a good innovation in Ethiopia. It's called SAPARM, which is a technology that would use the satellite mechanism to allow pastoralists to actually identify where we have pasture, and it reduces their movement. So that's one of the things that I thought probably would be quite revolutionary that is happening in Ethiopia, besides those ones that I've mentioned. And also M-Safari was part of that. Congratulations, Ronald. I think I had noted that one. And of course, you're one of the pioneers, and you could we could brainstorm on some of these things. Globally, we have one that was that is involved, a Norwegian company that developed a concoction that was able to actually be dropped within a desert location and actually allow the sand itself to hold a lot of water and allow crops to grow. So these are some of the things that probably I think they are very revolutionary, because you're dealing with agriculture, you're dealing with the farming aspect, which you believe those are very key and instrumental for sustainable development for societies. And of course, when you look at SDG goals, these revolutions actually affect most of these SDGs 17 that we always seek to achieve. So I think that's what I can say for now, from a local and a global perspective.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kevin. Benga, perhaps we could hear your thoughts on the same.
Okay, so I'll probably quickly, put in my thoughts on the challenges we faced during the pandemic, since I didn't get a chance, and then talk about the opportunities. So I think the biggest challenge for us was people, managing not just what they produce, but their state of mind. Mental health is not something that many people talk about, on the continent. But I think that this year we've since learned that it's not a white man's, thing. It is, we all definitely need that internal balance, especially when there's a lot of pressure from you on the outside. So there's that. There's also the fact that many of our team members work in countries where they're having power cuts. And so even if you have good internet, your router needs power. So that was a big challenge, but we're glad to see how the force of humanity, the willingness to get work done, was able to help us in overcoming that. And that actually takes me to what I think is a major opportunity in terms of best practice. You hear a lot of people in various countries in Africa, including Nigerians, say something like, if you can survive here, you can survive anywhere. At times, it's a basic statement that may not be true, but there's an element of truth to it. As you can tell by now, I love stories. So I went to this school once, far away from home, in a place called Boston. And I got there on a Sunday night, and we had this bulky, case studies to look at. By the time I got there on Sunday night, so typically, here I was coming from Lagos, Nigeria. At that time of the night, if there is power supply, I have to quickly iron my clothes, because you don't know when the power cut is going to happen. I have to arrange the things I need for the next day. If I need to make something with power supply, I quickly do it, and then I can microwave it the next day or whatever. Of course, you can't even microwave, there's no power. So I got to this city and there was no power cut. So I started reading the materials. And normally in Lagos, in those days, this was 2008, when I was reading, at about 11:45 p.m., there'll be a power cut, and then I'll go to sleep. So I kept reading in Boston. I kept reading, there was no power cut. I kept reading, there was no power cut. And then I finished reading all the materials, and it was 3 a.m. and there was no power cut. So I told myself the truth, go and sleep. And I got to class, and the lecturer was wondering how many people had gone through all of the case studies, including the ones we're not even going to treat that day. And I raised my hand, and he cracked a joke, because, by the way, that lecturer happens to be the famous Professor Callistus Juma, who any Kenyan will know, obviously. And then he laughed and said, of course, you're in Nigeria, and I know you finished reading everything. And we joked about it. Why did I finish reading? Because normally, power supply is a problem in Lagos, but here I was in Boston, and I had a few extra, hours of power supply, and then I did a whole week's worth of reading. There is one opportunity that many African entrepreneurs have: the amount of resilience, the amount of energy. There's what we call escape velocity, in engineering and generally, it's the amount of power that you need for a device to, be able to take itself away from, the power of gravity. Because we work so hard, because we work under, at times, unbelievable circumstances, it means that when we get the smallest of opportunity, we're able to shine. As I say, when there's a lot of darkness, even small light will shine. Imagine the kind of, the way that mobile money has now become a big deal across the world. But guess what? Mobile money was something that was invented for convenience. It was a struggle innovation. That's the way I describe things like that. It was struggle innovation. It was not out of convenience. Oh, I've got this $3 billion sitting somewhere, and my dad's garage is there for me to sit in and experiment. Majority of the innovation that you see across the continent today are by young men and women who have lived experiences that they're trying to solve problems with. So someone in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Uganda is not able to send money in a bank because they're not banked, and bam, the problem is solved, and that becomes an exported thing. The same thing, let me give 2 examples in Kenya before I leave. Ushahidi. Ushahidi was something that came from a crisis. None of us who remember the incidents in Nairobi or across, I happen to have been in, Kisumu, close to the time, and Nairobi, Kisumu, and anywhere else. All of the things that happened, they were not nice things. But guess what came out of it? Ushahidi. And today, Ushahidi is used across the world. This is this, and I can give examples from Nigeria to Cameroon to Zambia to Zimbabwe, things that people create out of struggle. But from that place of struggle comes innovation that other people are like, oh my God, I didn't even think of that, which goes to the example you gave earlier of those young men and women who shared an idea with someone else in Europe, and then they realized it was already implemented. Many of the disadvantages that we have today in terms of, I can tell you for a fact, one of the reasons why I'm not surprised that Andela is an African export is because it is not the lived experience of engineers in the US for them to need an Andela, for them to be able to get a job. If you go to school, you come out, you get an opportunity. But for many young people across the continent who are developers, you had to get an Andela, you had to get a Dufuna, you had to get a platform like that to connect you. And this is where innovation comes from. So basically, I think that as a continent and as social entrepreneurs, the things that we work in, the areas that we tackle, anti-corruption, in Nigeria, we've got budget working to explain what the budget means. Now they've exported that to Sierra Leone, to Liberia, to Ghana, and other countries. That is where our innovation will come from. Innovation will come from lived experiences in banking, in governance, in anti-corruption, in making sure. I mean, come on. I mean, the hashtags. Look at even hashtags. Hashtags are not the most sophisticated forms of innovation, but look at how hashtags have been used across the continent. Fees must fall in the south, NSAS in the west. What's a road or something like that? I can't remember the exact hashtag in Kenya again. The one that was taking pictures of potholes for government to see and things like that. So this is where our innovation will come from. It will come from our places of struggle, and I think that is good news. It's good news because if there's anything that social entrepreneurs know, if there's anything that African innovators know, it is that place of struggle. It is our usual experience that there's no power supply, so we know to think of what to do with the extra hours. It is our experience not to have textbooks, so we know to digitize them and make them available. It is our experience not to have bank accounts, so we know to digitize the money. And that is how we will continue to digitize our pain, and it will become innovation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Benga. And Ronald, if we could just hear your thoughts on the same also. Over to you, Ronald. Ronald Katamba, sorry. I forgot we had 2 of you. Ronald Katamba.
Okay, what were you saying? Can you repeat for me the question, please?
So we were looking at benchmarking with other practices that have happened just within the continent or beyond.
Yeah.
Is there anything we could borrow from? Yes.
Yes. I remember when I was in US, in Dallas, when we're trying to do a pilot for my project in Dallas, Texas, and I met this wonderful project. It's called Plantix. You're familiar with Plantix. It's in India, but it's also used to detect crop disease, and it also has a lot of information that can be sharing. But for them, they don't use drone; they use mobile phone. And it's quite very interesting to see how such kind of technology, it's leveraging that technology to make sure it can be also go to all over the world. Here in Africa, we have a project called CTI. There's an organization called CTI that is working towards helping in health and agriculture. And these are people who have been doing a lot of technology in health, where you can be able to talk to the doctor without you accessing the doctor. So you can be able to make sure you discuss whatever you want to talk to the doctor, and they can be able to help you in real time. So such kind of technology here in Africa, I think they're going to be able to help a lot of people in communities to make sure they could not even have time to visit maybe a garage, doctors within their facility, but they can do everything online. Yes.
Thank you very much, Ronald.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ronald. Definitely, we are moving into changing times. We've already been living in new times, which have been changing, but the future is very bright, despite what we're currently going through. So over to you, Mr. Osumba.
Thanks a lot, and I know we are running short of time, and a lot has been said in particular regard to our learnings. But I would also like just to share with my experience, and more so, not necessarily digital, but just from the wider spectrum of how do we support social entrepreneurs to innovate and address some of the social challenges we have. I think the UK has benchmarked pretty well, in my view, from my experience, have probably one of the most robust social entrepreneurship support infrastructure from a policy and legislative perspective. I happened to have visited, the UK, so Scotland, Britain, and all these guys in 2016 on a month-long tour, actually, on social entrepreneurship and the kind of support that they receive. And I think we on the continent need to begin to appreciate that social entrepreneurs feel an extremely critical gap in service delivery. A lot of the things that government is unable and in some places unwilling to do, whether that is in healthcare, in agriculture, in transport, in education. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who have great ideas, are willing to do it, do not need to be paid for it, but want to be supported from a policy and legislative perspective. So I think we need to have this conversation with our governments on the continent and push for formalization of what I call the third sector. And the third sector is this non-profit, not-for-profit, but addressing critical solutions using entrepreneurship approaches. If we can be able to support this, I think we'll be making a quick step forward. On the technology part of it, again, the UK government is one, I think, of the most progressive in driving the use of what is now called GovTech. Again, GovTech is a completely foreign terminology on the continent. We all know EdTech, AgriTech, FinTech, and all these other techs. No one is talking about GovTech. No one is talking about civic tech. I think, again, it's Benga who talked about Ushahidi. And, Ushahidi is one, I think, of the strongest civic tech examples I can think of anywhere in the world, but there are a lot of, governance, human rights issues that can be addressed by entrepreneurs using technology. So I think there is need to have that very deliberate movement towards defining what this third sector looks like, but also defining the support that government on the continent can give us. And there are many things we can do. We can formalize what I had talked about earlier in terms of communities of innovation. How do we purposefully build these communities? In the NGO world, people know about communities of practice, right? And they've worked pretty well. They've built frameworks that are replicable and scalable. Let's do this with innovation as well through communities of innovation. There are new thinking that we can introduce, like coming up with social impact bonds, which support social enterprises, right? Just the way we would have your typical private sector bonds or infrastructure bonds by government. So something like a social impact bond. I think there's lots that has been done out there that we can replicate, but it's government, because we're talking economics. And when we vacuum, this is why private sector insists on, all these things and collaborating and sitting with government to discuss this. Noreen, I want to challenge you that what we may need is a Small Businesses Act, not just a policy, but an act that focuses on supporting small businesses of a certain category, whether it is financing, capacity development, policy, tax regime, and all those kind of things.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ronnie. And just to mention that I think that is where we are headed, towards having the act there. But first, let's get our house in order. Let's get the policy working, or the framework that would guide that act. But as you well know, we have the MSME policy that has been crafted. And also we have activities like the MSE fund and the partial credit guarantee fund that will be launching soon. So there's a lot of activities that are actually moving us towards the act. Yeah, so thank you very much, Ronnie. Well, now I'd like to...
You can pick the team from here. We can start working on the act right now with the likes of Ronnie.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, now I'd just like to allow our speakers to just give one parting shot, as their closing remarks. What are we going to see different from the organizations, post this period that we're getting into? What do we expect to see different from Paradigm, from IGO, from HIVOS, and from Jaguza Tech? Because we'll be watching, now that everything has moved online, we have backup, we have the YouTube videos whereby you can go back and say, Gikonyo from HIVOS said this, so let's see what he's done. So as your parting shot, what should we expect to see?
For us at HIVOS, even during this time, we are more focused on enabling informal work. And of course, we have a lot of emphasis on inclusivity, be it women, the youth, people with disability, the marginalized communities. So you'll see a lot from HIVOS in regards to informal work and enabling them to be able to get an extra income from whichever cadre they come from, as long as they want to do that job, and making sure they do it in a very decent and honorable way. So we'll have more to do with that, ensuring that they have decent pay, they have security, less of probably sexual harassment. There's also a big research coming up in regards to anti-sexual harassment, and we want to have a portal that where we are going to have people address their sexual harassment issues using this technology, and whichever company you work for, and we've had these incidences here and there, probably work in an NGO or corporate government, and you have sexual harassment issues that probably the HR is a bit biased, cannot pick up. So we'd have that coming up in a very big way. We will also do a lot of climate action, ensuring that we are able to conserve our environment. There's a lot of advocacy that we're going to do in regards to climate action activities that you're going to see post-COVID in the very near future. And also in regards to mini-grid systems, where we can be able to reach the communities that are not within the normal grid. So we'll be able to have the mini-grid systems that would operate within remote areas, create markets, because some of these things, they look as if they are quite huge, but they end up affecting the normal workings of communities, improving their livelihoods, making sure that woman, the Wanjiko down there, gets an extra plate, that the children within our home are able to get a balanced diet, for example. So just having some of this power brought to them, it elevates so many things. And as we have spoken earlier, it will also bring the issue of education. It will bring the issue of enabling them cook well, getting an extra income, because some women would actually use that to probably even the young men would do probably things like shaving, a barber shop, probably a salon. I mean, there are things that will just touch on the lives of human beings. So for us, we are more in touch with things that are human-centric, that are people-driven, and we want to make sure that we have the biggest impact as much as possible as we operate within our space. We want to create and work together with communities, have solutions that are very well domesticated, so that we do not have a push-down kind of attitude that usually is bedeviled with so many international organizations. So for us, we want to go to communities. We have solutions that come from bottom up. They tell us this is what we need. And of course, as social entrepreneurs, we normally follow the process that we analyze the problem. Then after we do that, we find out what are the causes that are bringing up this problem within societies. And after that, we try and link these findings that we find in various communities to the solutions that we think can actually work from a local setup and even from an international benchmarking setup. Then after that, we can be able to have elements of addressing it through funding. And I like what Ronnie has talked about. I think it's a high time we need a social impact born kind of infrastructure that we can be able to actually mobilize some of these ideas. We could have brilliant ideas, we have brilliant ecosystems, but as long as we do not have funding, there's nothing much we can do. And to be fair to the whole scenario, is that out there we have so many philanthropists that will just want to put money to see that it has done the good in societies as much as possible. So imagine you have this person with money and you have this guy with an idea in the rural Kenya of probably Turkana, and they cannot be able to match the two to make an impact in societies that they live in. So if we have a social impact point, then and this act that we are talking about, that be able to connect, create that infrastructure, that we're able to connect from a ground up to the investor, to the social impact investors, and to the guys who actually have these ideas that are oftenly based within their community settings, and they have experienced the pinch of probably what they're suffering from. And I think if we have that conversation and have that act, have that infrastructure, and have these social entrepreneurs, the likes of what we have within the panel and those within Kenya and even Africa, we can begin to have the conversation of elevating communities and having social impact that will be sustainable through technology. Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, before I let you go, we have a question that has been fielded. Does HIVOS partner with social enterprises? Maybe you can answer that to the panelists.
Yes, in fact, one of our overriding and overarching theme is to find front runners. That's what we normally do. And what we normally advocate is to have solutions that are from the communities themselves and avoid the issue of having a Western versus top-down approach where you want to show certain technologies or even solutions to scenarios without listening to the people down there. So one of our overarching themes is actually to deal with front runners. They could be based in communities. We sometimes find scenarios and communities fund and also mobilize communities to form social enterprises in scenarios where they lack. So if we find scenarios where they are well enabled, then we work with them to make sure that we make lasting impact.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin Gikonyo. Over to you, Benga Sisan, as you give your closing remarks and what we hope to see from you in the next few months to come.
You see three things from Paradigm Initiative, three things. First of all, on December 10, Human Rights Day, you will see the launch of a digital rights toolkit called Ayata. Ayata is a Yoruba word that means bulletproof vest, which local hunters used to use in those days. We're worried that digital rights advocates and civil society organizations across the continent in many countries are facing a lot of closure of civic spaces. So we're presenting a toolkit that would help them stay safe as they continue to do the right thing for citizens. That's one. Secondly, our beautiful and wonderful Digital Rights and Inclusion in Africa report, if I may say so myself, it's something I always look forward to every year because it tells the story of the continent. In many countries, we have digital, strategies, but at the same time, in many of those countries, we do not respect digital rights. So we like to compare both. For many countries, for next year, there will be 20 countries, including Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, Cameroon, and many others. I look forward to seeing what the landscape is on the continent by February 2021. 2021? No. 2020 must not stay much longer. And last but not the least, we look very much, we're starting a new journey in Senegal, where we're taking our digital inclusion training for young people. It's an experience we did in a cyber cafe in Lagos, Nigeria, 13 years ago, and it has worked out well. Now, thousands of students have improved their lives and that of their families. So we look forward to doing the same in Senegal. We do not, again, I don't think any young person, either from Nigeria or Senegal or from Algeria all the way to Zimbabwe, no young African should face the kind of intimidation and harassment, that I literally faced because I just wanted to touch a computer as an innocent 13-year-old. So we look forward to that happening, in Senegal. And just to thank Ashoka and thank the hosts, for today, and also, of course, you, Noreen, for the questions, and to say that, this is not theory for us in Africa. Tech and development is not theory for us. We've missed many trains. We've missed many opportunities. This is the last train. We must make the best of it. We must focus on innovation and not, worry about creating climates of fear in the names of various excuses. Our young people must be supported with policy to innovate so that as a continent, we can stop being the joke of the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Benga, for that passionate closing. Over to you, Mr. Osumba.
Thank you for having us, Noreen. I think it has been an enriching conversation. As IGOV, we commit to see three things in the horizon to just continue to spar, and our focus really is on addressing our social challenges on the continent using technology. And we believe that the first thing we need to focus on in the new year is what we are calling the IGOV Open Data and APIs platform. So, how do we expose all this rich data that we have across the continent so that we can be able to leverage, big data technologies, analytics, to be able to have a better understanding of our social challenges, but also to then guide our responses to those particular challenges. So we are already working on the wireframe for this, and we hope that in the new year, we can be able to make this available, of course, starting with the East African region and then hopefully growing our footprint across. Obviously, with that goes along the conversation around data governance and how to enrich that across the continent. Kenya has already done its I think only Kenya and South Africa on the continent have an act on the same. Kenya has now appointed a data governance commissioner, a data commissioner. So that is good progress. The second thing you will see from us, I think, as we support governments and social entrepreneurs, is we need to understand how digitally ready we are as nations, as a continent, as organizations, as government. So we are going to do, at least in Kenya for the first time, what we're calling the Digital Readiness Index, specifically focusing on government and its agencies. And at the end of that, we will be able to produce a report, because even as we talk about a digital economy and moving towards enabling digital for shared prosperity, people need to be ready. I mean, it cannot be all talk without being ready. And so we really want to be able to start measuring this and call those who are not stepping up to account. The final one is, and this is, a passion that we have picked up recently, working with a couple of institutions, but more importantly, an association of international futurists called La Futura, La Futura thinks about the future, but thinks about also, so this is scenario planning and thinking about what does the future hold, what does it look like, but what do we need to do now from a policy and investments perspective to impact and influence the outcomes of the future. So next year we are hosting La Futura conference. It's the first time it's coming onto the continent in Nairobi, and we will be reaching out to all of you out there who are thinking of how to disrupt the future through innovation, and having this conversation about what do we need to do now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Osumba. Over to you, Ronald. I think we have three. Ronald
Yes,
Katamba.
thank you so much for this wonderful, Noreen, thank you for what you have raised, modulated as well. And to us, Jaguza Tech, our theme is we want to empower livestock production and strengthen food security, and also mitigation of climate change. So our focus is to make sure we help young people, youth and women to be at the forefront of livestock production so that they can be there. And that's why you see most of these veterinary doctors we have online, these are university students who are just graduated, they don't have jobs, so we get them, we put them on a platform. So we create for them something like an ends meet where they can get at least some money to make sure they can start their life. So we're trying to make sure we bring our platform all together into one centralized platform, where if someone wants to go for extension services, right now as I talk, we have more than 1,200 people who are viewing right now worldwide our services online on our Jaguza website. And on our mobile application, we also make sure we get these veterinary doctors, our customer care center, they are so busy helping farmers. And these are youth and women we want to bring on board to make sure they could be able to promote. They can go to the villages, communities, to make sure they could sensitize. Agriculture is the backbone to our country, not only to my country, I think to the world, because without food, there's nowhere someone can stay. So being that, we are trying to make sure we forego the problem of food security in our country and other countries we are supporting. Lastly, I want to thank the team, and I'm so glad to make sure to meet one of the best team so far. And also to you, Noreen, I want to thank you, and also to thank Ashoka, because my journey, I have a journey where I've come from, and it's Ashoka where I started. I started working with Ashoka from day one. I think in 2014. That's when I started joining. So I want to thank them for bringing us to give us this wonderful this virtual conference is very important to make sure I could meet my fellow entrepreneurs and make sure we can discuss something that can help not only my country but also to other countries where they can inspire us, and we can also inspire them, and it's quite interesting. And I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Katamba. And for our delegates, we have a post-session survey. So feel free, please, to leave your comments on the chat box on what are your key takeaways from the session. Do you see any opportunities to build on better? And of course, if you have any inquiries, you could reach out to the Tangaza team and the Ashoka team. At this juncture, I would like to thank my very able panelists who kept the 2 hours vibrant and who made this more of an engaging and discussion whereby, you know, we're looking forward to what is there next for us, as opposed to should we be scared about what's coming. No. In fact, I think following this panel, we are quite ready for what the future holds for us in terms of tech. Katamba, thank you very much for what you're doing in technology. As they say, the first billionaires came from mining, the second lot of billionaires came from manufacturing, and now the third set of billionaires are coming from agriculture. And this will only be made possible through, through the use of value addition and technology. So thank you very much. Benga, it's been interesting to learn about your journey and how you've used your passion and experience to get you to where you are today, elevating the youth and working with the youth, ensuring that they never go through the experiences that you went through. What you're doing is commendable, so we will say asante sana. And to Mr. Ronald Osumba, thank you very much. You've been working with the governments to shape their policies, and also as you come up with these great innovations, which are very commendable. We say asante sana. We understand that the link between the government and the private stakeholders is quite an important link, because that's how you get things going. Sometimes the private stakeholders would end up running a mile ahead because governments might be slow in how it is that they formulate or carry out things, but it's quite commendable what AACOSE is doing in that space, and we can only encourage you to continue further. The same for Mr. Kikonyo. HIVOS has been carrying out commendable work, and we like the fact that you've moved now to counties, because there's devolution currently in the country. So you've moved into the counties to see how you can help them with governance issues. So very commendable, and what you're doing in energy and the social enterprise sectors that you've just mentioned. Asante, asante sana. And we agree that innovation will only come from our lived experiences, as mentioned during this panel. Innovators, we have delegates who are innovators. We need to encourage them to push, because this is their time, as we've rightfully said. And this is the last train also, as Benga has mentioned in his closing remarks. And as the government, we need to be encouraged to have supportive policies and to create a coexisting environment that would elevate technology through the various discussions that we've been having. And the question that I'll leave you with today, and I hope it imparts whatever it is that you're doing, is how digitally ready are we, as we've been asked this afternoon? That's a question we each need to ask ourselves. Do we see the opportunities? Do we see what our role is? And do we see ourselves creating lasting impact through whatever it is that we'll do during this new paradigm that we're getting into? So from me, Noreen Deka, it's asante sana.
Karibu sana. Thank you all. Asante.
Asante. Please feel free to leave. I think the video will be shared by the organizers of the conference, Tangaza and Ashoka. Asante.